Namaste, this is Anvi Prabhu. Welcome back to my channel, The Anvi Prabhu Show. So, a lot has been said about the film CHHAAVA, which has broken box office records and stuff. Today, we're not going to be reviewing the movie itself as such, but rather reviewing a couple of the reviews that I saw about the movie and I found very interesting. Before we dive in further, please make sure you have subscribed to my channel, like the video, share the video, and also press the notification icon so that you don't miss out on any of my future episodes. This film is a biopic on Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj. The film talks about the splendid battles of the Marathas, specifically of Chhatrapati Sambhaji Maharaj, against the Mughal Emperor Aurangzeb. So after the death of his father, Chhatrapati Shivaji Maharaj, Sambhaji leads the resistance against the well-known tyrannical rule of Aurangzeb. Now, this is a story about the struggle for power and independence, which he fought not just for the independence of the Marathas, but for the independence and freedom of the entire India. So, Sambhaji Maharaj was only 13 years old when he ascended the throne after his father's death. From 1681 till 1689, he fought against the Mughals and also the Portuguese and the Dutch and British colonizers. He repeatedly defeated the Mughal army, which consisted of lakhs of people, while he had just an army of about 20,000. He was also a great scholar and a linguist who knew about 13 languages, and he had studied several different texts, and he's also authored several different texts as well. The two main themes that we will be talking about in this video is, one is of course the historical aspect, and the second is about the politics, the politicization of such issues and topics in art and in films. Now, I would like to preface this video by saying that technical criticisms of a film and its technicalities and the way the creative aspects have been dealt with, that's a completely different topic, and each person's aesthetic sense is different. So we're not going to be delving into that or judging that, but rather we're going to be talking about, as I said, the history and the political aspects of it. Now, one of the main mistakes that we make in the current day discourses, whether it be politics or religion or historical or social discourses, we confuse ideas and principles with political parties. So the minute you say that you kind of understand or follow principles to the center right, you are automatically assumed to be almost like a blind follower of the parties that are on the right, no matter what party it is. If you say you follow the principles of the center left, you're automatically assumed to be a follower of the political parties that are on the left, no matter what their actual principles may be, no matter what and how they're putting those principles into practice. All that is taken off of the table of discussion, right? So that really narrows down the scope for dialogue, in my opinion. You cannot equate ideas with political parties. You cannot equate principles with political parties all the time. Because all of us know that even if a party says that it is on the right, it might not always follow the principles that the right or the conservative stands for, and the same thing can be said for the left. And that's the case with dialogues about this film and also in general as well. The minute you say you agree with the principles on the center right, you are automatically assumed to be like a blind stooge of the BJP, which is the right-wing political party in India. And the minute you say you are a proud Hindu and you respect your ancestors and you're proud of your culture and your ancestry and your heritage, you're automatically assumed to be far right. You're automatically assumed to be Islamophobic, which is absolutely ridiculous. And now that I have prefaced the video by saying this and we have gotten that out of the way, let's delve into the video. Now, coming to the criticisms regarding the political aspects of the film. So there was one reviewer who said, well, I'm not quoting him exact word to word, but this is the gist of what he said. He said, well, so what if we have gained proof of, hundreds of temples being destroyed and the horrors inflicted on our ancestors? Why exactly are we talking about it now? I'm sorry, but I can't really come up with a genuine and a convincible answer for this comment, because the comment itself is very ingenuous. Like, what do you mean? What is the point of talking about what happened 300 years ago? Have we not learned about the importance of history? Or is it only selective history that is important to be spoken about? I wonder if this reviewer would say the same thing about films like Schindler's List or The Passion of Christ even. So I don't understand why it is okay to compartmentalize our society and also our history into different segments, where you say talking about particular segments is okay and necessary, in fact, and talking about other segments is not okay, that's not needed. It's like you give different levels of acceptability to different tragedies and people's sufferings. This film is a biopic. It sheds light on the political and social conditions of that particular point in time. So we can't really equate that to the present day and say, oh, why exactly are we talking about that now? Because it's not like that now, or, it is only going to aggravate the current situation. Like, no, I think the audience has enough sense. I think people have enough sense to differentiate between what a historical story is and is telling us, and not equate that with the current day situation. So to say that the entire film is nothing but a political propaganda and it is nothing but pitting against a particular religion, or that there is actually no point in talking about what happened like 300 or so years ago, it falls a bit flat, and it sounds desperate, to be honest. Desperate because for a change, the actual history of India is coming to light. Things are being unearthed, and a lot of things in history which unfortunately a lot of us were not taught in schools, me included, they are being told. A lot of light is being shed on them. So how is that not a good thing or not necessary? And once again, you can criticize the way it is handled in a film, but you cannot discard the entire film itself saying it is a political propaganda. Films and art in general, they cannot function in a vacuum. They definitely echo and reflect back the political and social conditions of the times in which that particular art piece or that film is made. And this film talks about a particular time in history. And not just this film, I think a lot of other films like Kashmir Files or the Kerala Story, they're all talking about aspects which haven't been spoken about before. And they do reflect the growing public awareness of our own history and societal conditions, and also the changing societal narratives. The argument is that these kind of films, in the pretext of showing historical tragedies, are actually increasing the us versus them narrative in the present day. I am sorry to break it to you, but there has always been an us versus them, not just in India, but the world over. That is how, unfortunately or fortunately, you can take it either way, the human society has functioned, will continue to function, because there will always be an us versus them, no matter what religions you take, what factions of the society you take, what economic conditions of the society you take. There is always going to be, well, let me be optimistic, there was always an us versus them narrative, which is why wars like these happened, struggles like these happened, and maybe it is going to be so in the future as well, unless something really intrinsic about human beings themselves change. Well, social philosophy aside, there are going to be extremist factions within each section, and these films might be considered to be, far right or majoritarian or whatever other tag you want to give them. But you cannot ignore the fact that there were films that spoke of the opposite as well. There were films, brilliant films to be honest, that portrayed the majority community of India in a bad light. They painted them as the aggressors and as far right, almost comparing them to the Nazis. If you're familiar with Indian political narrative, you know what I'm talking about. Films like Parzenia, Dharam, Final Solution, and all these films were made when the opposition was in power during the rule of the Congress, the past several decades. So yes, art cannot function in a vacuum. It will reflect back the political and the social dialogues of the society, and you are going to have films made from this side and as well as that side, but you cannot negate historical facts because of that. And also you cannot shut down discussions and just negate complete films as political propaganda and nothing else. If you do that, then you'll have to do that to all the films and not just to selective films which don't fit with your narrative. And that is where I think the aspect of honesty comes in when it comes to political discussions and social discourse. Coming back to the historical facts, Aurangzeb's own records state that he was not a very big art connoisseur. He considered art to be a waste of time, and he thought that demolishing temples was an achievement. And what exactly is the harm in stating those facts? How is that going to be offensive to anyone? So to completely discard historical facts for the sake of political correctness is literally like hitting yourself with a slipper. I think any self respecting individual, any self respecting patriot would at least have an open mind to know the historical facts to start with. And making films like these, talking about these facts, I don't think it is pitting against any particular religion. It is not Islamophobic. And in fact, I would actually love for all my friends who are non Hindus to watch these films and to actually know what the history was. That is not going to divide the us versus them narrative. I think that is going to bring us together more. You have to understand where the person standing opposite you is coming from. You have to understand their background, their history, and why they are saying what they are saying. So if you're going to cut away the possibility of dialogue, what exactly are you achieving? Is, I guess, my main question. I would love to know your thoughts in the comments. Don't forget to comment below and let me know. There was one more comment, I've noted it here, who said that this reviewer said that Aurangzeb in the film is portrayed as a very old man and he's not portrayed in a very nice way. Like, he has kajal in his eyes and all that. Yes, because when the battles with Sambhaji Maharaj happened, Aurangzeb was in his older years. How exactly were people expecting him to be shown? There might be some aspects of the film which you would say was not realistic, like, the horses coming out of the water or whatever. But that's, sure, again, that's like a technical aspect. It's a thing called exaggeration that artists use. It's not just in films, but in different art media as well. You use exaggeration to highlight a particular character or a particular aspect of a story. So, I mean, showing Aurangzeb as an old person is, I really don't know how else the filmmakers could have shown him as, but if this comment does not show the failed education system, I don't know what else does. Going to the next point, there is this criticism that this film actually glorifies war. Again, let's keep the film aside for a minute. We unfortunately have had wars throughout history. War is a very necessary element, or having an army is a very necessary element to protecting your borders, to protecting your identity, your culture, your heritage. Somehow, again, this fight for identity is seen as very noble when it comes to certain sections of the society, and it is really looked down upon when other sections of the society do it. Again, there is this double standard. And if you want to take the point of the film itself, I think this is the 10th time I'm repeating it. This film is a biopic which shows the struggle for independence and freedom. So obviously it is going to have war. So honestly, I don't know what the reviewer was so upset about it glorifying war. There are several other films which glorify violence in many other different ways. Violence is a very intricate part of being a human. It's a very intricate part of the human society. Again, like it or not. I'm not doing a moral judgment on it here. I'm just stating facts. So I don't really understand where this criticism is coming from. Of course it will glorify war because it is a struggle for independence. Now, connected to this criticism, there is another comment that usually pops up where they say that, it wasn't like a religion-based war, but even kings of the same religion fought against themselves to, expand their kingdom and all of that. Sure, but you cannot negate the religious aspect again for the sake of being politically correct. It is not going to serve anybody because it's not a political party writing it. It is not any far-right extremists writing it, but these are actual historical records which show the kind of tyrannical rule that Aurangzeb had. Coming to the historical aspect of it, criticism basically says that, it distorts history. I personally don't think it does. I think it is very uncomfortable for people who have been used to a certain particular ideology and a particular way of looking at our history over the past several years, that any change or modification in that is making them really uneasy. So it's actually not distorting history, it is showing the actual history. There was one reviewer who blatantly stated that she is in fact not very well versed with the Maratha history, and then she proceeds to make a 10-minute review about the film, talking about all the points that I mentioned here. No comments. If this does not show your allegiance to a ideology and to a political narrative at the expense of truth and honest conversation, then I don't know what does. Again, you don't have to agree with everything. Of course, it is your prerogative. But to negate everything just so you can sermonize about being correct, politically correct, that is, falls flat. In fact, a lot of historical details have been left out of the film. The kind of tyranny that Aurangzeb unleashed on the people at that time is well known. It's not me saying it, it's not any right-wing party saying it, it is historically recorded. Having said all of this, I would love to know your opinion about the movie as well as some of the reviews that you have seen and also the points that I have raised here. Don't forget to join in the conversation below. I would like to end the video by saying that the problem with ideology, with any ideology, is that it has the potential to make you lose all sense of being a decent, thinking, patient human being for the mere sake of being true to your narrative at the expense of everything else. I shall leave you with the thought for now. Until next time, take care.